Well, anxiety is something many Australians experience, but not many people have to deal with it while on live TV. And that's something that happened to a member of our team right here. Take a look.
Bit of a surprise for you today. Nate is feeling under the weather. The weatherman is under the weather, so here's our star guest weather reporter, Michael Rowland.
Right. Nate, what was happening there? Why did Michael have to step in?
Because that morning I had run into the studio because there was short notice needing to be on air, got into my position at the weather wall and was just trying to control my breathing a little bit. And that triggered the first ever panic attack of my life as an adult. This is actually what you're seeing now, a lot later, having another panic attack a couple of years after the fact. So I hadn't...
Is this the one that I saw?
Yes.
Can we just hear a bit of it?
Absolutely. And in Tasmania, a bit of wet weather continues for the west and the far south. Gusty winds too, but all of the warnings have been cancelled. 16 degrees on the way for Hobart. Over in South Australia, skies are mostly clear. We might get an afternoon storm around the agricultural area. For Adelaide, it's a fine day, staying pretty warm as well, getting to 20, while in the west, it's looking pretty fine for the most part.
We've also got warnings for more
This is the very
rainfall
first one here now. There's not much to see actually. What's happening is I'm trying to control my breathing, and I started to have a bit of a tingling in my brain. My heart started pounding and I started sweating a heck of a lot. Now, when I tried to get back on air 15 minutes later, all of those feelings came back and I couldn't operate. My heart was throbbing. I was just sweating.
I can hear you, licking your lips, trying to... When I saw you, when it happened and I saw you, I thought you were having a stroke. I thought because your words started dragging is the best way that I could say. And I was looking around at the others to go, what's going on here?
Yeah, and that was my fault because everybody had known about it beforehand,
but I was the new kid.
You were the new kid on the block, and so it was very much a lesson to me to make sure that the people who are your support team, which is what breakfast is for all of us all the time, they need to know to be able to support.
The reason we're talking about this, Nate, is because the ABC is running a special project called the Anxiety Project, and it's about sort of demystifying anxiety. It's something that so many of us have faced. I myself, when I was reading the news in the UK one time, I had a panic attack and I remember opening my mouth and not being sure if the words were going to come out. It's something that happens to so many people and you don't necessarily know why. When you experienced that there on TV, do you know what triggered it?
Well, now we do. Not at the time. I found it very, very confusing. I'm very lucky that I've got the kind of brain that just says, there's a problem, we've got to figure out how to solve it. So I was at the doctor getting some medication to help me deal with it a couple of hours later. And then that night, I actually was back on air on the 7 p.m. news filling in and managed to do it. So that was amazing. But it was all about my brain just figuring that position, because I'd run in a bit puffed and was trying to control my breath, it had run out of oxygen a bit. And then next time I was there, it thought, I've been here before. This
is where I've had problems. Hey, I went to an expert to try and learn a little bit more about this, and we've got her on the line, psychologist Dr. Jodie Lowinger. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You've been listening to us having a bit of a chat. What are your thoughts about what went on with Nate?
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here and congratulations to both of you for sharing your experiences to help others. Panic attacks are actually really common in society. About 40% of the population can experience a panic attack at some point in their lifetime. What it is, anxiety is our physiological reaction to perceived threat in our environment. And that perceived threat might be, what if I make a mistake, a worry thought, or it might actually be that initial physiological experience. It's the fight or flight reaction, which is a surge of adrenaline and cortisol in our bloodstream that's setting up our body to fight or run in the case of a real threat, but it's unhelpful in the case of a perceived threat or a worry thought. And it can present...
Jodie, just talking about this right now, I'm a little bit on edge, and I've had to go... How's this for behind the scenes? I've had to go to makeup twice this morning to dry my shirt because I've been sweating so much. So I'm obviously under no threat right now. Why is even thinking about it making me feel this way?
our brain is wired to self-protect, but it's not so great at differentiating between perceived threat and real threat. So the physiological experiences that you're experiencing, that rapid shallow breathing, that rapid heart rate, the sweatiness, they're all there to help us in the case when we need to run or fight, right? But in the case of this situation, when it's responding to that magnificent active mind that you have, it's not very helpful. So what we want to do is circumvent that spiral by building awareness around what anxiety actually is. And when we can demystify it, like what you said in your experience, when you started to understand what anxiety is and that it's actually nothing dangerous that's going on, and then you leverage practical strategies, you move from anxiety into action around what you know to be helpful, that can circumvent that panic spiral.
I think, Jodie, one thing that people need to understand about anxiety is that you don't necessarily have a thought trigger for what is actually going on in your brain. So if you've had an experience previously that has triggered that kind of fight or flight, you might just start feeling it in your tummy and you're going, but there's nothing going on here. Why am I feeling that? Can you explain that? Why is that?
Absolutely. It's the anticipatory anxiety. It's the worry prior to the situation. So when we have, let's say, an initial panic attack, that sets up almost like a mini trauma in the brain. And it sets up this wiring, which is a speed dial to that part of the brain, the amygdala, which is the control center for the fight or flight reaction. So in these situations, an initial panic attack can build that association with certain situations where you had that panic attack. And so it triggers that anticipatory fight or flight reaction. The really good news is with the right practical strategies, anxiety problems can be helped very easily. You know, whether I've written a book, The Mind Strength Method, which is 4 steps to curb anxiety, conquer worry, and build resilience. But there's so many self-help apps out there and things, but engaging in the right practical strategies, you can turn these problems around quickly.
For many people, it's getting out of the situation. For me, it's pressing my thumb into my finger to give my brain something else to concentrate on. Jodie, thank you so much for giving us your insights on what's a really big problem and affects so many people this morning.
Yeah, beautiful to connect with you, and congratulations on the work that you're all doing. It's really brilliant.
Oh, cheers.
Thanks. And thank you, Nate. And the reaction already has been enormous to your article as well, which is on the ABC News online page.
You can read exactly how I was feeling and I step you through the whole process.
Yeah.
Hopefully it helps somebody out there.
And I think the message to take away from it, Nate, as you say, is that you are such a confident broadcaster. You're such a confident human being, and it honestly can happen to anyone. And there's nothing to be ashamed about.
Exactly, and that's what we're doing here today. Hopefully it helps.
Okay, hopefully you can stop sweating.
Yeah, all right, I'll go check myself.